and what a big one it is. I want everyone to take out their iPhones, iPads, and MacBooks and turn on the lights. Pull it out. Yeah, that's right. Let's light it up. And he said, as our next guest loves to say, let's dim the lights. Let's set the mood. Here we go, everyone. As the head of software engineering at Apple, this man oversees the development of iOS, macOS, iPadOS, and the Apple software many of us know and love. Today, he is here with us at Web Summit to talk about the proposed Digital Markets Act.
Have stayed consistent. Sophisticated on-device protections and a central app store with human review. And the result has been a platform with privacy and security at its very foundations. Now, there is, of course, no such thing as a perfect security system. But for the most part, the constantly improving set of protections we've built have managed to stay one step ahead of the bad guys. Long story short, iPhone's security approach has worked. But you don't have to take my word for it, because the security community regularly says things like this, quote, Apple's iOS devices are the most secure consumer hardware ever made. But let's look at some numbers, because when we compare iOS to other platforms, a clear story emerges. Here's a graph showing third-party data on malware infections by platform, and you can see iPhone barely registers. But the level of attacks on other platforms is a different story. One security firm found more than 5 million attacks per month on its clients using another mobile platform. But there's never been this kind of widespread consumer malware attack on iOS. Never. So what's the difference? Well, the single biggest reason is that other platforms allow sideloading. And on iPhone, sideloading would mean downloading software directly from the open internet or from third-party stores, bypassing the protections of the App Store. And we talked about the pillars that protect customers on iPhone. With sideloading, those layered protections are undone. There's no human app review and no single point of distribution for sideloaded apps. The floodgates are open for malware, and we're not the only ones who think this is risky. Here's what the leading cybersecurity government agencies have to say. According to Europol, users should, quote, only install apps from official app stores. And other government agencies in Europe and the US draw exactly the same conclusion. There's a clear consensus here, and it's that sideloading undermines security and puts people's data at risk. Now, this brings us back to the Digital Markets Act. But before I proceed, I do want to try a little bit of audience participation. A quick show of hands, how many of you carry an iPhone? Okay, a pretty good number, thank you. But if this group mirrored Apple's smartphone market share in Europe, the answer would be about 1 in 5 of you. And that's okay with us, because at Apple, our goal has never been to sell the most. Instead, our mission is to provide people with the choice of what we view as the best. Now, back to the DMA, because the DMA has an admirable mission to promote competition and to make sure that consumers have choice. And I'm a big fan of both of these goals. But as an engineer who wants iPhone to stay as secure as possible for our users, there is one part I worry about. And that's the provision that would require iPhone to allow sideloading. Because in the name of giving users more choice, that one provision would take away consumers' choice of a more secure platform. And all this comes at a time when people are keeping more personal and sensitive information than ever on their iPhones. And I can tell you, there have never been more cyber criminals so determined to get their hands on it. So now let's return back to our favorite house. As you remember, you made a choice. You wanted to protect your family, so you bought a really safe home with a really great security system. And you're really glad you did. Because since you first moved in, the burglars have never been more creative or more plentiful. And in the real world of cybersecurity, this couldn't be more true. Attackers are virtually dressing up as mailmen, building tunnels underground, and trying to scale your backyard walls with grappling hooks. In this world, some of your neighbors are suffering repeated break-ins, but the home you have has kept you safe. But then that new law gets passed. And in the noble pursuit of, say, more optimized package delivery, your town requires everyone to build an always unlocked side door on the ground floor of their homes. Now, some of your neighbors, they love this idea, but you're not so sure, because you know that once a side door is built, anyone can walk through it. The safe house that you chose now has a fatal flaw in its security system, and burglars are really good at exploiting it. In a nutshell, sideloading is that unlocked side door, and requiring it on iPhone would give cyber criminals an easy point of entry into your device. Now, we don't think anyone wants that, least of all the policymakers intending to give users more choice and more protections. And European policymakers have often been ahead of the curve. But requiring sideloading on iPhone would be a step backward. Instead of creating choice, it would open up a Pandora's box of unreviewed, malware-ridden software and deny everyone the option of iPhone's secure approach. So clearly, I'm no fan of sideloading, but I want to address an argument that I hear a lot. And it goes something like this. Let people choose whether or not to sideload. Let them judge the risks, and they can decide for themselves. And it's easy to see the attraction of this argument, but history shows us it doesn't play out the way that we'd hope. Because even if you have no intention of sideloading, people are routinely coerced or tricked into doing it. And that's true across the board, even on platforms like Android that make sideloading somewhat difficult to do. So let me just show you a few examples. Take this official-looking website, which looks like a government page where you can download an app to track the spread of COVID-19. They even provide official-looking instructions on how to download it. But after you download, you realize you've been had, because instead of an app, you have a healthy dose of ransomware. And this isn't hypothetical. This actually happened on Android. People who tried to do the right thing to protect their health and the health of others sideloaded an app that was a vehicle for malware. Another example. Let's say that you decide to only download apps from the official App Store because you've decided that's the safest thing to do. Well, which store was that? Because one of cyber criminals' all-time favorite strategies is to mimic official app stores, leaving everyone totally confused. And this happens all the time. At one point, a security firm found 27 malicious apps that prompted users to download a fake Google Play Store, infecting their phones with adware. Criminals are clever, and they're really good at hiding in plain sight. But I wish this were the end of the story. But cyber criminals aren't the only ones we have to worry about. So let's say you go to the official App Store, and you're looking for a social networking app that your friends are all on, but it isn't there because some social networking apps will probably try to avoid the pesky privacy protections of the App Store and only make their apps available via sideloading. Privacy features that go beyond the bare minimum legal standards, the ones that users truly rely on to keep their information safe, well, these would no longer exist for these apps. And you'd be stuck with the alternative of losing touch with your friends online or taking on the risks of sideloading. Now, maybe you're thinking all this might be true, but I'll never download a sideloading only app, and I won't be tricked into sideloading. Well, that might be true for you, but your child might be fooled, or your parents might be fooled. And even if you see through every deception, the fact that anyone can be harmed by malware isn't something that we should stand for. The fact is, one compromised device, including a mobile phone, can pose a threat to an entire network. Malware from sideloaded apps can jeopardize government systems. infect enterprise networks, public utilities, the list goes on. So even if you never sideload, your iPhone and data are less safe in a world where Apple is forced to allow it. Cybercriminals' targets and strategies vary, but here's what couldn't be more clear. Sideloading is a cybercriminal's best friend, and requiring that on iPhone would be a gold rush for the malware industry. That one provision in the DMA could force every iPhone user into a landscape of professional con artists constantly trying to fool them. iPhone's secure approach would be off the table, and everyone has to live in the less secure, more dangerous environment that sideloading creates. I think we'd be better off letting users choose between an iPhone with its security and privacy-first approach and other platforms that may allow sideloading. You know, rooms like this are full of people that see technology's enormous potential to improve lives, to build a better future, a future where technology embraces our humanity and where our devices are trusted extension of our powers to create and communicate, and where we imbue these products with respect for users, respect for their privacy, respect for their security, and respect for their ability to choose a platform that takes all possible measures to protect them. I look forward to working together to ensure that users around the world continue to experience the full range of innovation that all of our technologies have to offer. Thank you so much. Have a great Web Summit.